Why do some athletes bounce back from injuries faster and stronger, while others spend months struggling to recover and sometimes even give up the sport altogether? Today, we're uncovering the secrets to faster, smarter injury recovery with Dr. Eugene Israilov, a physical therapist who has helped athletes turn setbacks into comebacks. You'll also hear about athletes like Lauren Swan, a D1 college basketball player who didn't just rehab her shoulder in high school. She came back to dominate the court and landed her at the University of Arizona. If you've ever faced an injury or want to be prepared for one, this episode is for you. So, welcome back to the Student Athlete Performance Podcast, where we help you unlock your full potential. I'm your host, Nick Lemke, and today I'm joined by Dr. Eugene, founder of Vital Rehab and Performance. Dr. Eugene, thanks for joining us.
Nick, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So let's go right into that big core subject we want to address, which is recovery time. So we see pro athletes bouncing back from injuries really fast compared to what we see in the high school or non-athlete population. Why do you think traditional PT takes so long, and how does your approach differ to achieve faster results?
Yeah, so traditional PT is more cookie cutter stuff. They do the same thing with the high level athletes that they'll do with 67-year-old grandma. That stuff just doesn't work, unfortunately. Aside from just the cookie cutter approach, there are other factors that lead to your recovery. Your sleep, your diet, your stress levels. These are all factors that must be considered, especially for a high level athlete. Tissue will heal on its own with time. You don't have to be a necessarily good therapist. There are mediocre therapists who do give results because of time, right? But in order to really excel and perform at a high level, you need to actually be aggressive with the rehab in order to perform at a high level. And traditional therapy does not do that necessarily.
So what with Lauren, I mentioned in the intro, she has a very unique story that you shared, and I know is on your socials as well. But can you talk about like that process? Because it sounds like it went way faster than what the typical person would expect from recovery.
Yeah, so she's a good example because just how quick return to play came about, especially after she had her shoulder surgery. She returned to she was cleared to return to play 6 weeks post-op with torn labrum, which is you don't feel that. And torn labrums take anywhere 3 to 6 months to heal, and even then, you're still like hesitating a lot. But she was back. She went on the Nike tournament champion 6 weeks after. And that's because we got very aggressive. The surgeon who I worked very well with told me, he literally told her after surgery, next day go to PT. Let's get the arm moving. And that's I think that's very important. Like PTs are very conservative. They want the tissue to heal, but where's the research to support that? You want to start to move the tissue, move the joint. It will actually help accelerate the healing process. And once that becomes pain free, you want to start to load the joint. I think a lot of PTs are very conservative with their approach. And what we did with Lauren is once she became pain free and she had pain free range of motion, it took like maybe 2 weeks. We started to load her. We started to move her with some weight. She started feeling good. We started to get her stronger range of motion. Everything started pain free. Then we started doing more sport specific stuff. I think people also take for granted the how important time is. Time is also very important. Um, you can get so much done as long as you have the proper guidance.
So something that's unique, I feel like too, with hers is, she got injured in high school. A lot of athletes who get injured in high school lose their opportunity to play at the next level or to play at the level that they were expected to. So D1, Power 5, wherever it might be. But like, what happened with her that made it like, unique in her situation?
Well, once she still mentally she knew and she was confident herself that she could play at a high level. She saw it in her, and I kept reiterating it. I told her, I'm like, look, you can play this game. Playing the game is not the difficult part. It's how are you approaching your recovery to return to playing at peak performance, right? So these are some things that we talk about. Physical therapy and rehab itself shouldn't be Okay, let's do 3 sets of 10. Half the time I spend just talking to them. How are you sleeping? Like, what are your sleeping patterns like? Did you get enough sleep today? Like, are you stressed? Why are you so stressed? What's going on? Like, are you good? Are you okay in school? Another part is with these athletes is they're academically they're so stressed out that it affects their performance. So like just time management is also very important for them. How is your diet? Like, what are you eating? Lauren at one point wasn't eating enough, so I said you got to start eating more. Right? You can't go out on the court and have and be and then not eat. You're going to be in a caloric deficit. Where are you getting your energy from? But so like small things like this will make a big difference. But when you're in the traditional system, they can't talk to you about these things because they have four other patients that they have to attend to. There's no time for that. Time is the X factor.
And I think anybody listening, like parents, coaches, like you guys can even recognize that with the traditional healthcare, traditional things is, you get sent to the doctor, you go to the doctor, and you get at most like maybe 15 minutes, but usually probably like 5 minutes actually with the doctor. And then you get like 5-10 minutes with the nurse or something like that. You get very, very, like, everything's rushed. So you don't really get the solution to your problem. And I think that's the big thing, with you, Eugene, is like you're finding out the holes in the process. You're finding the holes in like what's holding them back, and exposing that, which, again, traditional healthcare is not addressing. And that traditional, you go to this many sessions, you do this thing, and now it takes this many several months, and it's like very like you said, cookie cutter. I think that's a good phrase there.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's just they don't have it's impossible for them to give you that time because they're more concerned about just driving volume. And I was in that system. I hated that system because the quality of care is completely deprived. But when you give them time, they start to understand that, oh wait, there's more to than just this injury. Right? There's other factors that can help accelerate my recovery and get me back playing at a high level again.
So how do you know when somebody's like ready to come back? Because I feel like there's also the others who might say, well, like if somebody rushes their recovery, they get like re-injured, and that's where we see a lot of athletes, they try to rush their recovery back, and then they get, injured again. How do you gauge that they're ready to go fully back?
Well, there's certain protocols that an athlete must go through in order to fully return to the game. Also their confidence level, putting them in sports specific positions to make them feel like, okay, I could do this, and I don't have to think of or fear of an injury again. So it's a case by case basis, but a lot of it is more just protocol specific. With ACL athletes, for example, they have their specific protocols that they need to adhere to in order to have the confidence. One thing about ACL is, they when you're like 3-4 months post op, you feel good, right? Like you feel like your knee, you're not in pain anymore, right? Or your knee is back to functional level, but you can't go and play. Like you don't have the proprioceptive awareness in your knee to withstand the cutting, stopping. So that's what I mean by like protocol stuff. It's case by case.
Do you have any like specific examples, either with the shoulders, or even like you mentioned with the ACLs, of some of those things that helped you, like with certain athletes, of able to bring them back essentially faster than you would expect?
I mean, we could stay on the topic, with Lauren. First thing is getting them pain free range of motion. I think that's the key. Once you get the pain free range of motion, then you can start to slowly load the joint. And then you want the same side, the affected side, to be as strong as the unaffected side. And then you want to also you want to be able to re-stimulate the neuromuscular system to adapt to the way that the body behaves. So the joint that was injured, you want to readapt to the body, because when you're playing the sport, you're not thinking, you're reacting. Right? So when you react, the body has to you have to feel coordinated. When you injure the tissue, you're uncoordinated. You don't really understand how the tissue moves. You have to relearn a lot of things. But once you start doing that and you start doing more sport specific stuff, it starts to feel good. And then you can slowly wean them back. So I didn't just tell Lauren, for example, so all right, go play. All right, go 5-on-5. All right. I told her non contact feels good. We're gonna go minimal contact, right? Then we're gonna start doing pad work, right? And then start bringing your arm overhead and get hit with the pad. Feels good? Okay, let's do 3 on 3s. 3 on 3s feel good. Let's do 5 on 5s. Good. How did that feel? Oh, I just felt my shoulder felt good, but I felt out of shape. Let's work on your conditioning. Right? Sometimes you're deconditioned and it can lead to injury. So like you see, steps,
Yeah.
protocols.
I mean, that's the same. It's the same thing with nutrition, where a lot of people try to do it like this all or nothing approach, and they ultimately fail at that. And it's that step by step. Like you're like, all right, let's hammer down the breakfast, hammer down the pre post workout, then go into like hydration and snacking and all those things. It's like this. It's step by step approach because you want to, if you want the best long-term results, you want to stay on the court, stay on the field. You don't want to get re-injured. You have to follow the process versus trying to go from A to Z like all at once.
Yeah, yeah. I think nutrition is also very important. A lot of these athletes they don't really take it as serious as I feel like they should. Nutrition alone could be an X factor. I had a baseball pitcher. He was a high level baseball pitcher. He went semi pro, and there was one point in like his training where he couldn't peak past like 90 miles an hour, but he knew he had it in him. And I told him, I was like, "What are you eating?" And he's like, "I eat this, I eat that." I'm like, "You're not eating enough. Like I think you gotta eat more. Like maybe have an extra snack in a day, or maybe like add like put some more calories per day. Start going up. Started going up. Just something so simple. But yeah, yeah. Nutrition plays a big role.
But yeah, I just wanted to stress too that like that process, because it's again, so many athletes try to go like straight from, okay, like I like you said, you can walk normal, you it doesn't hurt when with your ACL. So you're like, okay, well now I can go play, and you're like, no, 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 like that's contact. There's a lot of different factors into that, and so that, yeah, that progression.
Yeah,
So
it takes steps.
yeah. So what do you feel like is causing? Because we see a lot of athletes who either re-injure that same exact body part, or a similar, like maybe an ankle to a knee or something like that, or they injure like the opposite. So they injure one ACL to the other ACL. What do you feel like are some of the gaps that are causing some of those things?
I think it definitely goes back in line to the quality of service that they're receiving. If you injured a knee, for example, you gotta look up the chain. You gotta look at your hip. You gotta look at your ankle. You shouldn't just only focus on the knee. And then again, like if there's something, and one thing that also is the cause of that is the lack of education, movement wise. Like the musculus, the movement patterns that a specific athlete goes through is specific to them, and we need to readjust the way that their body is behaving. And I think that's the reason why the same side of another joint gets hurt, or the opposite side gets hurt, is because there's some misalignment going on in the way that they're transferring energy up the chain. But again, like the provider who is rehabbing them needs to consider all of those factors.
So, what would your advice be for like parents slash athletes who maybe don't live in a city or in an area where they maybe have more of that specialized, more personalized approach? Yeah, what would be your advice for some of them? Like, even like I know in Washington, we've got a lot of small towns out on the peninsula that don't have access to people like you.
There's nothing wrong with going virtual. You can definitely seek care outside of the local community. I've treated people virtually, athletes, and it's actually good because they actually start to understand how their body moves without being dependent on others to help them. So I think that's also very important. The biggest thing that I would say is parents have to just be more proactive about it, and want to seek more. And the hardest thing is also just getting the providers trust, having them trust that okay, this person is going to help my child get back on a sport, or prevent injuries. Nothing is for certain, but there are better um, avenues to take to address these concerns.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I think that's something too that post COVID and just in general, I think it's going to be a really good opportunity. And I think that, parents really try to explore those options. That's why I bring guys like Eugene on here, have different network all around us because it'll help you guys have those resources that you can really support those athletes in and give them what they need, not just what's close by. So yeah, I think it's cool that that's you have that and that like again that's becoming more of a more.
Yeah, definitely very important. I think that people should just rely on just one thing also is that the technology today is so advanced. There's no reason why they shouldn't seek the best form of care. It's possible. It's out there. They just have to take it upon themselves to find it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Now, you do more than, I mean, we've kind of focused on more of the rehab side of things, but I also know that like you said, even with Lauren, there's those like continue up to the loading phases and everything, but you even go to hey, like performance based post injury or even non injury, you work with athletes. So, what are some what would you say are some key things that are unique to working with the PT for some of that, like explosiveness, strength, all those types of things?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's also very good to work with a performance based specialist who understands body mechanics and understands how to load your joints specifically and also move better that move specific to the sport. So, for example, I wouldn't train a basketball athlete the way that I would train a baseball athlete because they're two different movement patterns and movement habits that is specific to the sport. I think also that they, as you start to develop and enhance your level of performance, you need to be more conscious of how to dose your tissues appropriately. There's so many different types of training methods that you need to start to implement in order to enhance your level of performance. I have athletes now who scares me a little bit to want to see them go and play this sport because they can't even stand on one leg, but they go and play the sport, so I think it's very important to do the small things but also to take like a top down approach to performance based stuff.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's almost back to the where we talk about those foundational things that you need to do to come back from injury. Same thing with like preventing injury and really growing in performance, strength, speed is you're laying that foundation, which is those proper movement patterns, the all the things that you I know address in your training. I think is so key for athletes to learn these because we don't. I mean, truthfully, we don't know how to move. Just like we don't really know how to eat. What because none of us are taught how to eat. We're not really taught how to move. We just kind of follow what our body started to do, or we follow what somebody else is doing, or maybe we had an injury and then it throws off our rhythm. But I feel like there's just so many factors in that you just have to learn how to freaking move.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people just we become creatures of habit. The way that you stand from a chair is the way that you've been standing from a chair your whole life, right? Nothing changes until you get an injury. But is that the most effective way for your body to do it? No, right? It's not. Like if something is bothering you, most likely it's not. But yeah, I think definitely as far as like specific, if we're staying on specific for athletes themselves, it's important to teach them how to move correctly in order to help mitigate these injuries. And like I tell all my athletes, I'm like, you want to play this sport and have fun doing it, you need to learn how to move when before playing the sport. I have athletes that come to me and they are what they think are high level athletes because they can go and score 25 points in a game, but then you put a barbell on their back and they can't even move. And it's mind boggling. I'm like, and then you wonder why you get hurt because you don't know how to move correctly. That's the one thing that also what's about problem with athletes, and I'm noticing that this is a problem, like a systemic problem. This is a problem all over. Is they're so concerned about performing on the field that they forget the important things. They need to athletes, especially the youth athletes. When you're in And like the 12 to 15, once you're like 16, 17, it's already, if you want to go to college, you got to really like step it up. But like the 12 to 15 range, you need to start to develop a good solid athletic base, and that starts in the gym. Um, and a lot of people, they take that stuff for granted. But that's where you need to live in order to really excel in the sport and play at a high level. You need to live in the gym. You need to understand how to move correctly. Coaches don't do this. Head coaches don't do this. They're more concerned about winning or practice. They'll run them to death before they throw them in the gym. They take this stuff for granted, but I think it's very important.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And that's where, I mean, it's, this is again reasons why I have this podcast, because I want to bring this awareness like to you guys as athletes, as parents, as coaches. Is like there's still so much we either don't know as a system, or that we do know that we're ignoring basically, and we need to address it for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely something that should be more vocalized in the athletic community. They need to spend more time outside of the sport and more time doing other things that can help them enhance their play on the.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like Lauren. She was, I mean, not only did she recover from injury, but you were able to get her to be, more
Oh,
explosive and
yeah, well, let me tell you, Lauren, when she first started, she hated this stuff. And the reason why she hated it is because no, she was never exposed to this. Right? So her body had to go through an adaptation phase. It had to start to embrace this. Right? Like she didn't like putting a bar on her back. She didn't like feeling soreness the next day. And I told him, like, Lauren, if you don't enjoy this now, you will have a horrible time in college. College is gonna kick you in the rear end. So embrace this. Just that alone, just that interaction alone is priceless. Because they don't have time to teach this to them. They don't have time to explain this to them. Kids, they're just their mental acuity themselves can go a long way. A lot of kids, they're mentally, they will get messed up because either they can't get through an injury, or they're missing so many shots. But just talking to them will help significantly.
yeah, yeah. No, that's so true. Any last things that you really want to leave the audience with, specifically to athletes and to parents?
I think athletes should definitely be more aware of where the system is going today, and take it upon themselves to want to do better for themselves, especially if they know like they have potential and they feel like they haven't fully reached it. There's more out there that can help you. And I think it's up to them to communicate with their parents and vice versa. I have parents who tell me my son has so much potential. As a parent, are you helping them, right? Are you investing in them? Parents, if you see like your child has the potential, you must invest in them. Don't look for the easy way out. That's not going to help you. You have to invest. And look, like Lauren's mom, she invested tons of money. Like my service is not cheap, but it is worth it because she has a full scholarship and she's getting NIL deals. NIL deals alone will pay for this tenfold because the amount of money they're throwing out there to these college athletes is absurd today. Absurd. But they're doing it. They are doing it. So yeah, I would definitely invest. Don't be afraid to invest. If you feel like your son or daughter has potential, I would definitely look to invest in them.
No, and that's definitely a good way to wrap up. And I just want to say, like, thank you, Eugene, for hopping on. And I really want to stress the athletes too. Like, it's very clear, number one, that an injury doesn't have to be the end of your career, but you've got to address it in the right way. On the flip side, if you haven't even been injured, like, still, an injury can derail you. If you can do what you can to prevent that, that's going to be huge. So make sure that you're laying those foundations, and make sure that you check out Eugene. I got his details in the show notes. But again, Dr. Eugene, thanks for hopping on today.
Thanks. My pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And for listeners, until next time, keep striving for greatness.